Ramit Sethi is the host of Netflix hit show How to Get Rich and the author of 2 New York Times bestsellers, I Will Teach You to Be Rich and Money for Couples. He holds both a bachelor's degree and a master's degree from Stanford and began his journey into personal finance by applying for over 60 scholarships to fund his education, an experience that sparked his interest in financial literacy. He is known for his no-nonsense approach to designing and living a rich life, and his goal is to reframe the way we think about money. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I have to ask, 60 scholarships, did you have to pay for college in the end?
No.
That's
the
amazing.
Scholarships generously covered all my undergrad and grad school. And I learned so much about money just from that because I could walk into the Stanford bookstore, and one of the perks of one scholarship I had was I could get any book I wanted, any book. For me, that's like, that would be like somebody else walking into a chocolate shop for 5 years and they can just take anything. And I would just pick them and then take it to a special desk. I didn't have to pull out a credit card. I just told them my name, walked out. And ever since then, they felt so magical to me to just be able to see any book, because as a reader and a writer, that is the ultimate. That I created one money rule for myself, which was unlimited spending on books. Unlimited. So if I ever see a book that I like, I don't even hesitate. I don't equivocate. I just say yes. For any book for the rest of my life, that is this rule that I've had. And in my 20s, that was amazing. I love creating expansive money rules. Mm-hmm. And then I made them even bigger. Unlimited spending, for example, on health. Mm-hmm. That's a rule that my wife and I developed together. And, I wouldn't have been able to do that when I was 21 years old, but I love being able to say, what do we want to spend more on? What's important to us? Because the way you spend money really reflects what your values are.
I completely agree. And that makes me feel a lot better because I bought like 5 books yesterday. And they're not cheap here. They're like $30 a book now.
Yeah.
But it's incredible. I wanted to ask you, you're very good at speaking to couples with their relationship with money. You're very good at breaking it down. But why do you think money is so taboo when it comes to relationships? Even when 2 couples are very healthy, love each other, there's still some uncomfortable feelings.
Money is the ultimate taboo, especially in many cultures. And, there's great research showing people would rather talk about their sex lives than their credit card debt. Right? I cite that in my first book. And I think one thing that is under-discussed with money is that most of us grow up without thoroughly understanding money. Like we pick up clues like amateur detectives, mom or dad saying, we can't afford that. Do you think money grows on trees? But that's it. We don't have a cohesive view. We never really had to make a major purchase until we, are 20. And so we kind of grow up with these patches of knowledge, but we don't really have a philosophy. Mm-hmm. Then we meet our partner, and maybe we are in a early dating relationship, or we're engaged or married or whatever the relationship status is. And they also don't have a philosophy. They've picked up bits and pieces. So you combine one incomplete with another incomplete view of money, but then life forces you to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And so rarely do couples sit down and say, hey, what's your philosophy? How do you think about money? Should we save more? Should we spend more? No, it's more like, why did you spend so much at Target? How could you go to the gas station and buy that energy drink? It's just focusing on $3 questions instead of $30,000 questions. And that is why it's so taboo, because we don't have a full picture of how money actually works.
You speak a lot about having money values. And it's kind of like what you said at the start, you value reading, you find things that you value. How do you do that? How do you set up your own values and then meet someone and go, well, do our values align? Is that very important, or is that something you can chip away at over the years?
Honestly, if you want me to be honest, I think it's really hard. I don't think most people go through life with a set of values. What are my values? It's the kind of thing that experts love to say, what are your core values? And then average people are like, what are you talking about? What's a core value? What does that actually imply? That takes a lot of training. It takes a lot of exposure to companies and people who live life through values. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's realistic to expect anybody to come up with a core set of values, but we can get there. And I think we start off by asking, what do you love to spend money on? This is why I always start talking about money. What is your rich life? What do you love? And I'll tell you what happens, because I've spoken to like literally over 1 million people over 21 years about money. I go, what's your rich life? They go, I want to do what I want, when I want. I go, oh God, not this godforsaken answer. And then I'm a professional. So I'm like, wow, that's fascinating. What do you want? Mm-hmm. And then they just stare at me blinking. Now think about that. We spend maybe 8 hours a day working for most of our adult lives. And most of us have never really thought about what's it all for? What's the purpose? Put your hand out like this, palm up. What do I get? That's a question that my wife and I ask each other. Like, what do I get for working hard, for being an entrepreneur, taking risk, or being a parent, or moving? Mm-hmm. What do I get? It's a question we should be asking ourselves a lot. And it could be flexibility. Mm-hmm. It could be the freedom to pick your kids up from school every afternoon. Mm-hmm. It could be the ability to buy a beautiful cashmere coat. All of those could be your rich life. So I really push them. And when people kind of get into it, something happens, because most people have never been genuinely asked what they want to do with their money without judgment. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times, particularly with women, I'll get these responses that are quite embarrassed. And they'll go, well, like I love, it's kind of frivolous. I said, what's that word? It starts with an F? Frivolous. I never heard a man describe his $85,000 truck as frivolous. No. Why are you describing your beautiful handbag as, I don't think it's frivolous. If you love it and you can afford it, why not? Never heard a guy describe his video game collection as frivolous. Mm-hmm. So this actually unlocks something, because most people have never heard somebody say, oh my God, you love traveling or you love eating out. Tell me where. What do you get at that restaurant? And then, do you ever get dessert? Oh, like I've had their pancakes for brunch. It's amazing. And people desperately want to be heard with their money. So I'm genuinely curious. You love a truck? Fantastic. Tell me about the truck. You love going kayaking? Tell me about that. And I help them start to get comfortable with the idea that if they love it and they can afford it, then why not? Why would you not get that as part of your rich life?
Why do you think people don't? Like, what have you seen that stops these women from being like, you know what, I do want that handbag?
Women and men, but women have a particular way of talking about it. From childhood, the only phrases we typically hear are, we can't afford it, money doesn't grow on trees, or silence. Mm-hmm. That's so common in families where one parent or two parents simply don't talk about money. Money is almost never seen as a source of excitement. Mm-hmm. Oh, sure, people will buy stuff. They'll eat out. They'll go out for drinks. But they almost always feel guilty. I mean, think about it. You probably have friends who have said like, oh, like this weekend I was bad. I was bad. What's that mean? It means I spent money. I need to be good. What does good mean? It means I should, look at what I'm doing with my body. I'm shrinking. I should be good. I should stay inside and save money until I'm 90. It's such an unhealthy relationship. Like, imagine we talked about food like that. Yeah. I was bad. I should be good. Actually, a lot of us
we do.
It's quite an unhealthy way to talk about food. Mm-hmm. I want us to develop a healthy relationship with money. And sometimes that means saying, that's not part of my conscious spending plan. Sometimes that means saying, I don't have the money for that today, but I'm saving for it tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it means saying, you know what? I love that. I can afford it, and I'm going to get it unapologetically. That's one of the reasons that I love sharing part of my rich life. Like, I spend a lot of money on things I love, and I also cut back on stuff I don't care about. And I like showing people that, you know, you can have money, you can have a lot of money, and you can choose how to spend it. Like, my wife and I are not super into high-end restaurants. We'll go once in a while, maybe once a year, but we'd just as happily get a slice of pizza in New York. And just because you have money doesn't mean you're always staying at some like fancy hotel. You can choose where you want to stay, choose what you want to eat. It's your rich life. It's not mine. It's not your parents'. It's yours.
You mean you don't eat like Michelin star every night?
No, it's so funny you say that. You know, the frugality world, which I'm quite critical of. When I say frugality, I'm talking about people who tell you need to cut back on lattes, don't buy jeans, you know, don't go out. And maybe, just maybe if you save for the next 68 years, then you can afford to take a trip to Greece. Like, what kind of life is that? And actually, when you think about it and actually calculate the numbers, cutting back on coffee really does not materially change your life. You want the coffee, get the coffee. You need to be focusing on $30,000 questions. What's my debt payoff date? What's my savings rate? What's my investment rate? Can I increase that by 1% per year? How do I increase my income? Those are big, meaty questions. But too many of us play small. And so one thing I've noticed about frugal people, especially hyper frugal people, is a lot of their attitudes and behaviors are driven by fear. So here's how it goes. They go, I don't need to eat at fancy restaurants. What's really happening as I talk to them and unpeel is there's a fear that if I eat at that nice restaurant once, that I might actually like it so much that now I'm going to trip and fall and end up having to eat there every day for the rest of my life. Like, it's so absurd when you say it out loud. Oh, if I stay at a nice hotel once, now I got to stay there for the rest of my life. No, you don't. And I'll give you a different version of how I approach it. I trust myself enough to know that I can go to a nice restaurant once every few months or once a year, have a nice meal, and appreciate it for what it is. Wow, that was really good. I don't know how they made that type of food. That's so good. And then go back to eating like normal. The rest. I'm in control of my money. It is not in control of me. So whether that is a nice restaurant, a nice vacation with friends, a beautiful piece of clothing or an accessory, if I run my numbers and I can afford it and I love it, I trust myself enough to know I'm going to get that thing, and I'm not going to have to buy 364 other things just like that.
And how did you decide what was part of your rich life and what are the things that you don't and do spend money on?
I think there are clues. Like for me, I always loved reading, so books were a natural part of it. I loved clothes when I was young, but it took me asking one of my friends for help. She took me shopping once when I was really young. I think I just graduated from college, and she was very stylish. And I was like, "Can you help me, like, develop my style?" So she took me to the store, and the way that she had me shop was so different than how my mom had taken me shopping. So like growing up, my parents are from India and not a lot of money at home. So it was like, we're getting like basic clothes, like Mervyn's. We shopped at Kmart when we were kids, like very basic. And like, that's it. Mm-hmm. Okay. My friend goes, try this on. Oh my God, this looks so good. Take that one. So she's getting really enthusiastic. Mm-hmm. Now I'm getting excited, like, oh my God, does that look cool? And she pushed me on some stuff. So I start looking at the price tags because that's what I saw growing up. Mm-hmm. She goes, don't look at the price tags. Go in there, try it on first. And if you love it, then we can look at the price tags. Oh. I was like, what the hell?
Who loves like this?
So I did that. Yeah. And she changed the way I shop. But the final part of it was when you start to change something about your life, especially if it's visible, you will get pushback from people around you. So for anybody here who has changed their body, anybody here has changed their style, anything that people can, maybe you change where you live. Mm-hmm. I remember being a young guy and having friends say two things to me. One, what are you going on a job interview? And two, are you gay? What are you gay?
Really?
Yeah. I mean, this is in like the early 2000s. So people don't really say that now. But let me tell you the effect on me. When you're trying something new for the first time, at least I was pretty insecure. I wasn't sure if I looked good. Like, mm-hmm. This shirt's a different style than I'm used to. And it is so scary to go out there. I can't speak as a woman, but as a man, to try a different style mm-hmm. is like, whoa, that's not part of what guys do. Mm-hmm. In fact, guys are like, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that my friend was there to support me, because had I not had that support, I probably would have gone right back to what I was wearing before. And this is just a tiny example. This isn't about clothes. A rich life is bigger than clothes, but it is about trying to refine what you care about. Mm-hmm. And if your rich life today is the same thing it was when you were 20, you're probably not thinking big enough.
Yeah.
So I want people to feel comfortable thinking of a bigger life. I'm not here to tell people to cut back on coffee. I don't want you to live a smaller life. I actually want you to live a bigger life. What's that vision? Pump it up, push it. Now let's figure out how to use money to get there.
Oh, I really like that. Did you think your childhood had an influence on how you view money now. And the reason I ask is I think a lot of people that live quite frugally or come from very frugal backgrounds, myself included. My dad we wouldn't have like couches in the house. We had like plastic chairs. My dad was a software engineer. We could afford couches.
Was he frugal or cheap?
Both. Oh, what's the difference?
I like to break it down by cheap versus conscious spenders. You know, for cheap, your cheapness affects not only you, but the people around you. And you always look at the cost of everything first. When you eat out, that costs too much. When somebody comes home with something, how much did it cost? Conscious spenders might say, hey, I really love a car. I'm going to spend more on my car. But when we travel, I'm fine staying in a lower end hotel or hostel, motel type of thing. Conscious spenders can toggle between the two. And once in a while, they also realize it's a dance. I'm here at a restaurant with 10 other people. It's okay that I'm going to end up paying a little bit more for my salad. I don't mind.
My dad was cheap because I remember once we were asking him, people like, you know, we're going to get you a birthday cake. And he goes, do you know how much birthday cakes just like how many times do you need a birthday cake? And then how much is a birthday cake? And then over your lifespan, how much will we spend on birthday cakes?
Yeah.
And so now every year we kind of laugh at that with him.
Do you get him a cake?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
I like that.
We will buy him things and he'll return them and then he'll just exchange them for something for the family. Like we bought him a phone, he returned it. They said you can't get your money back. So we bought the family an iPad.
Yeah.
So he's cheap, but for someone that's listening and going, oh, this kind of sounds like me. I feel like I'm cheap, but I want to be more of a conscious spender. That sounds more realistic. How do you move towards that?
It's really hard. Like I always say I can help a lot of people, but I can't help cheap people. Like if you're cheap, let me tell you why. I actually think being cheap is one of the worst afflictions out there because like take the example, not to pick on your dad. I'm sure he's great. He raised you. So you and your family wants to get him something nice, to recognize him for all that he's done and how much love he's shown you. His response is to focus on the dollar value. A rich life is so much bigger than the dollar value. It's symbolic, it's connective, it's relational. The cake is not about flour and frosting. The cake is about love. And what I want for everybody watching this is to be able to understand that the point of money is not to save it. It's certainly not to hoard it. The point of money is to use it to live a rich life. Now, to me, if I have a family and they want to buy me a cake, I'm not going to let them buy the cake. I'm not asking about money. Go ahead. In fact, if anything, I have set up a system where my family can flourish, where they would never dream of asking me about, you know, the money related to a cake. So how do you help somebody who maybe doesn't understand how to use money in a more strategic way? I think that that's the case for a lot of us. I think that most of us, if we think about driving, most of us have only been taught to slam on the brake. Stop spending, stop doing anything, stop going out, stop. And we hear it from parents and friends, like, stop. And I want to show us all how to be a little bit more intuitive. Sometimes there are times to go. Sometimes there are times to stop. Sometimes it's time to coast. But if you're only pushing on the brake your whole life, that life sucks. It's just not fun. Plus, it's not productive. So what do? You start off by asking, what is your rich life? And there's a few tools I have. Maybe we can do a little exercise right now. So I'll just ask you, Sim, what do you love spending money on?
I love traveling. I'm in New York right now. I love jewelry.
Nice.
And I love nice houses.
Wow. Okay. 3. I love these answers and I love how they rolled off your tongue. Now let me ask you a question. Let's take the first one, travel. I'll call that a money dial. A money dial is something that you can dial up or dial down. So let's just practice dialing it up. How often do you travel right now?
I think I'm quite lucky, probably like 4 or 5 times a year.
Great. If you could quadruple your spending on travel, what would that look and feel like?
A mistake. It would be too much.
Too much?
I think so.
Really? Wow. In this hypothetical, even fantasy, your first response is that would be too much and it would be a mistake.
Yeah.
You can't even dream about spending more for like 30 seconds?
If I was to spend more money on travel, quadruple it. I'd probably bring my family along.
Tell me.
Well, my dad's dream is to go to Japan, and I would love to take the family, my parents, my brother, and do a trip or do like a trip to Europe. So I've traveled a lot. They haven't, and I want them to see it.
Tell me more. Let's get specific. You would take them.
Yes.
How would you take them? You driving them in the van to the airport?
I'm taking them to the airport. I'm taking them on business class.
Oh.
We're enjoying.
Love it. Keep going.
We're going to, all the places I've been to Europe that I've enjoyed and showing them, I guess, just like the stuff that I got to see. Surely
you must have to save money by going to the grocery store and making your own sandwiches when you're traveling with your family, right? Right?
Maybe.
Or?
Or we eat out and I take them to one Michelin star restaurant.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what would you do that would make that trip absolutely magical for them?
I'd probably do like a surprise day where they like don't expect it. And I'd think about like what's something very special that they can like enjoy and attend and kind of like spring it on them.
I love that. Okay. What did you notice as you answered that?
My heart rate just kept going up and up.
Feels like stressful.
Yeah.
But also maybe like I could see you kind of looking away, kind of like imagining it.
Mm-hmm.
I love this second part where I ask people to dream with me because it is so rare that we actually have ever dreamed about using our money.
Mm-hmm.
We feel guilty. We shrink as you did. That would be a mistake.
Yeah.
Why? If you can afford it,
mm-hmm.
or if you can't afford quadrupling it, could you afford 1.1xing it?
Mm-hmm.
But most of us have been taught to slam on the brake, and our language reveals us.
Mm-hmm.
What I want for people to do is to understand the concept of money dials, to become quite fluent in it. Every one of us has a money dial, a thing that we love to spend money on. In fact, the most common money dial is food, eating out.
Mm-hmm.
The second is travel, which is yours. The third is health and wellness. And then there's a variety of others. My primary money dial is convenience. I love my life to be just so convenient. But all of us have at least one. And I want people to be able to be very strategic about turning that dial up. So if your money dial, if you're watching or listening to this and your money dial is travel, amazing. Then I want you to have a clear, crystal clear vision of what the next level of traveling looks like. Note, it does not have to be more luxurious. Most people actually answer by saying, I would travel longer. Mm-hmm. They say, at a very advanced level, they say what you said, which is I would bring the people I love with me, right? There's so many ways that we can get more connected to our rich life through our money dial. That is the first way of getting people to stop looking at cost and to start looking at a vision of a rich life that's meaningful to them.
When you talk about, having a rich life, I feel like we've discussed how we can bring that upon ourselves and how we can decide, okay, this is what's important to me. And then one of the biggest questions that our community has is, well, what happens when I bring another person into my life? What do you see with couples that are good at having money conversations together or good at managing it together? What are some of the traits that they portray?
Good couples who are good with money talk about money all the time.
Okay.
Yeah. You'll hear this phrase again. Our language always reveals us. People say, I need to have the conversation. I need to have the conversation about money. Would you ever say we need to have the conversation about our son or our daughter? We need to have the conversation about our elderly aging parent? No, you'd have 100, 1,000 conversations. Once you accept that we talk about the things that are important to us all the time, then you will realize we better find a way to make this fun because we're going to be talking about this for the rest of our lives. So I actually flip it and say, we get the chance to talk about money and to connect over our joint vision as opposed to, I guess we should talk about the fucking bills.
Yeah.
It's not an obligation. It's not something to sigh and do quickly so that we get it done. No, it's an opportunity. Now, at the beginning, sure, it can be challenging. We don't even know how much money we make. 50% of couples I talk to on my podcast don't even know their own household income.
Really?
50%. You can hear it every week. I'll be like, okay, here's how much you all make per year. Did you know that? Usually about 1 out of every 2 of them will be like, no, I didn't know that.
I asked my fiance before he became my fiance. I asked him in our 4th week of dating, I was like, how much do you make? Oh. Very quickly.
Okay. What did he say?
He said,
tell us the number.
He said that he what was quite interesting. He was like, I don't feel comfortable discussing that. And I said, do you know who you're dating? This is my entire life, talking about money.
You literally pulled the do you know who I am line. I've never pulled that in my whole life.
Well, more just like, this is a huge value of mine, being financially transparent.
Yeah.
And he said growing up, his family, for good reason, taught him like, just don't talk about money with other people. And so we had discussions on it. And like, I believe in salary transparency within workplaces. He doesn't. And I got the number out of him by the end of the day. But it was an interesting conversation.
That is fascinating. Big kudos to you for bringing it up. That's honestly amazing. I should have brought up money with my now wife way earlier. I totally botched that. I actually violated my own freaking rules from chapter 9 of my first book, because I'm always like talking about, when do you talk about money? And there are these natural moments when you're dating. First off, you can just look for clues. Most people are, it's like you're curious. By the third date, you're kind of curious, obviously. You're like, hey, what'd you guys do when you were growing up during summer? And if they're like, oh, like we went to Europe, like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Or if they're like me, or like we got in our minivan and drove from Northern California to Southern California and stayed with family. That's also quite revealing. And then, you ask more. You can even ask questions like, hey, how do you think we should handle the tip tonight? Right? Oh, that's a really interesting observation. But ultimately, there are these beautiful moments, like the first time you travel together. You go, this is a great way to bring it up. You go, you know what? I'm so excited about the trip we have coming up. I can't wait to be on the beach with you. I took a look at my finances and I know how much I can afford, but I'm curious how you're thinking about money for this trip. Now, I've done 3 things in that simple little script. 1, I always start by pegging it to the North Star. I'm super excited. Can't wait to spend more time with you. 2, I've looked at my numbers and I know how much I can afford. This is where a lot of people go wrong. They give away their power. They go, how should we handle money? No, you don't ask someone, you tell them, because you are independent and you know your own numbers. So you go, I know my own numbers. I know how much I can afford. But number 3, out of courtesy, how are you thinking about it? This is a very refreshing way of maintaining control, because you never want to delegate the finances to somebody else. It's a joint effort, but also being courteous and saying, hey, this trip, how are you thinking about it? There are these natural times like traveling, if you move in together, certainly when you get married. And then there are a few other times where it just makes perfect sense to really look at numbers. I think you did an awesome job.
Thank you. I like to think so. I have to ask, when it comes to the things that you see in the couples that you work with, you said that talking about money is a great sign that they are good with money together. Are there other signs that you see that go, okay, these people can manage their money well, or that, is it vulnerability? Like, what is it that you kind of come across?
I think one uncomfortable truth is that people who were raised talking about money are really good, typically much better. And usually the people who were raised talking about money came from higher socioeconomic families. So it's no surprise that those things are passed down generation to generation. The opposite is also true. I just spoke to a couple where the wife was quite scarce with money, and like unreasonably scarce compared to the millions of dollars that she had. So I asked her why. She said, my mom was the same way. I said, why? Her grandmother was raised in the Great Depression. And it is literally passed down generation to generation. But here we have somebody who has now millions of dollars, who's done quite well. And yet she still feels the same way somebody felt in 1930. It's quite shocking. So other traits of being good with money, knowing the numbers. Every person in a relationship, whether you're the high earner or the lower earner, whether you make $0 or you make a ton of money, you and your partner have got to know the 4 key numbers. There are 4 key numbers. Everybody says, I don't believe in keeping a budget. I don't believe in tracking the price of turnips. It's a waste of life. But there are 4 key numbers I think are really important. Number 1, fixed costs. I recommend those are 50 to 60%. That includes your rent or mortgage, debt, car payment, groceries, the stuff you need to keep the lights on. 50 to 60% of take-home pay. Next is your savings. 5 to 10%, although higher is better. Third is investments, 5 to 10%, although this is where the real wealth is created. So I recommend that be higher. And then finally, guilt-free spending. Going out, traveling, nice things, 20 to 35%. That's a lot of money. Almost nobody knows these freaking numbers. So literally when they go to buy stuff, as small as, eating out, as big as a house, they just put their finger up in the wind and go, oh, I guess I can afford that. Like literally 95+% of people buy a house, at least in America, without running a single calculation. It is insane. Then we go down to a smaller level. I talk to people all the time on my podcast. They tell me, oh yeah, we bought a $2,000 mattress. Let me just tell you something. First of all, how much is your mattress?
I was just thinking that. How much is my mattress? I want to say like $400 US.
Okay, we're going to have a great conversation. So I'm talking to this couple. They're in like a lot of debt. And they just casually mention that they have a $2,000 mattress. I scratch my head, right? This is why I love my job, because I get to talk to people from all over, all different values. I go, what kind of mattresses? They tell me the brand. I go, how'd you decide on that mattress? And they go, oh, well, you know, like we needed a new one, blah, blah, blah. I go, sorry, how did you decide on how much you could afford? Mm-hmm. And they looked at me like I was stupid. They're like, a mattress is one of the best investments you can make in your health. It's like, a mattress is not an investment. A mattress is a purchase. It's not an investment. We got to stop using the word investment to justify buying carrots, a personal trainer, a mattress, a freaking pair of shoes. Those are not investments. None of them. Okay. You might as well say, oh, Ramit Sethi, I'm going to stay at Aman, which is over $2,500 a night because they have nice air conditioning and my arm hair goes down and I can write better and therefore my book will make more money. It's not an investment. It's a freaking purchase. Acknowledge it, admit it, it's fine. An investment is something that can produce a financial ROI. Otherwise, everything is an investment. Face cream, that's not an investment. Your truck, also not an investment. So then I talked to the next couple, also in debt. They also casually mentioned they spent $2,500 on a mattress. I go, what's going on in my life? How'd you decide how much to afford, how you could spend on this? They also come up with an answer that is like, Ramit, are you stupid? You spend money on the things on your feet and on your back. And I realized something. Nobody knows how to answer the question, can you afford that? When I ask a question, how did you decide if you can afford that? The answer better have a number in it. Like, can you afford that mattress, bag, house, car? Your answer should be, well, my fixed costs are currently 48%. I can afford to add 12% more, numbers. Mm-hmm. But so many of us answer these questions with feelings. Mm-hmm. And feelings are important. Feelings are very important in money. I will never dismiss them. I spend a ton of time talking about feelings in our psychology. But sometimes you just got to know the freaking numbers. So if you're in a relationship or if you're single, you cannot feel your way to a rich life. Mm-hmm. Feelings are a core part of that. You probably can't get to a rich life without understanding your feelings. But you can't feel your way to deciding if you should buy a house. You can't feel your way to deciding if you can afford a mattress. You've got to know your 4 key numbers and you've got to know them well.
I completely agree. I think that the numbers part makes it makes it more black and white, and therefore you do feel more relaxed because you're like, well, it falls within this category. I have to say, I definitely call skincare an investment all the time.
I know a lot of people do, and they actually stopped listening to this podcast once I said that. But let's take that as an example. I'll just try to make my case. You could disagree.
Yeah.
If skincare is an investment because it's an investment in health and, you know, it can technically prevent future medical concerns, then like, couldn't I say that my, why don't I buy a $900 bottle of shampoo? Mm-hmm. Surely that must be an investment.
I see what you mean.
Or why don't I justify my beautiful cashmere sweater that costs $2,000 and say, well, it keeps my skin feeling softer and it probably prevents UV, right? It starts to become a very loose way of us simply justifying the things we want. I would rather somebody just say, you know what, I love my sunscreen or whatever skincare. Mm-hmm. It's a luxury and I love it. I wish, but you know what? Yeah. But almost nobody wants to say, oh, that's a luxury.
Yeah.
So we wrap it in the guise of an investment because that feels more logical and safe. Ooh, I'm not bad. And it's men and women. Yeah. It's no one person that does it. You should get very comfortable admitting that there are a few luxuries in your life that you absolutely love and you're not going to apologize for. Do you know how much I spend on certain things? Like the hotel. I'm a hotel guy. That's one of my money values. I'm on, yeah. I love hotels. There is no justifiable reason that I pay 10 times more than staying at a nice Marriott property. I don't get 10 times better threads on the towels. It is a pure luxury and I can afford it and I love it.
This is how I know I'm frugal, because I thought Marriotts were nice.
Marriotts are nice.
Are they not?
They're very nice.
In America, they're not considered like a good...
No, they're not as good as abroad. Well, everything in Asia is higher end, but like Marriotts abroad are much better. Okay. But they're perfectly fine. Listen, the way I grew up, like we didn't even stay in a hotel until I was like much older. We stayed in a motel, and my dad was like, stay in the car. And we're like, what? And then we learned this. You know exactly where I'm going with this. Stay in the car, and then we sneak upstairs, and then he calls him, hey, can you send some more towels? And they're like, oh, sure. How many do you need? He's like, we need 6 more towels. They're like, sir, this hotel room is for 2 people. You know?
He's like, kids don't count. It's fine.
Yeah. Just bring it. He hangs up the phone. Like, I get it. But also what I want everybody to understand is you can agree or disagree with some of my philosophies. I actually expect most people will disagree with at least one thing I've said today, and I'm okay with that. Mm-hmm. I want you to accept that it is okay to spend money on certain luxuries. It doesn't make you a bad person, doesn't make you frivolous. If you can afford it and you love it and it's part of your guilt-free spending, 20 to 35%, then own it. Yeah. We spend too much of our lives like playing small, physically, figuratively, literally, financially. And what will they think if they find out I spent $75 on this face cream or $300? I hope they find out because they know I'm not making these decisions by putting my finger up in the air and feeling where the wind. I calculate my numbers. I'm very conscious of it. I'm going to purchase things that I know I can afford and that I love. But I'm not going to wrap it in the guise of an investment. My investments are index funds. Those are my investments. And those are the things that are going to produce material financial ROI. My face cream is not.
You know what? You actually changed my perspective on this. I agree with you.
Hold on. I need to sit with this. The first time it's ever happened in my entire life. I'm on a podcast and someone just changed their mind. Tell me, please.
Like, I believe that a good mattress is an investment. I believe like good tires are an investment, good shoes, because to me, that just means my life is more comfortable. But I think when I put it into perspective, I'm calling these investments because I'm scared to say these are luxuries that I like.
Thank you.
And it comes from a fear of being judged for spending money. But if I put the word investment in front of it, the judgment kind of rolls off me in my mind.
Thank you. And that is so profound. Oh my God. Everyone listening and watching, what a gift to be able to see this happen.
You're welcome. Doesn't happen often.
We are so scared of what the world will think of us. And the truth is, most people are not sitting there with a spreadsheet tabulating what you spend on things. Mm-hmm. They don't care. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. We are focused on ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so we create these games in our head, which actually keep us small. Mm-hmm. Because if you can't afford to admit that your mattress is a luxury or just a purchase, then when it comes time to buy something really beautiful and nice, or something for a family member or a child or whoever, then we have to play these same games. Or even worse, I see this with a lot of people, particularly moms. They're so giving, buying things for their kids, for their spouse. And when I ask them, what do you like to spend money on for yourself? They shrink. Oh, me? Oh, I don't, it's not about me. It's about the family. Oh, I go, but what about you? You put so much time, so much love, so much effort into this family. What about for you? And sometimes their answers, which you can hear every week on my podcast, are so small. Oh, I get my nails done. Not that often. It doesn't even have to be fancy. I can just do a quick express one. Not that. I go, why are you minimizing?
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about nails. This isn't the most extravagant thing. This is something that will give you an hour of pleasure and a week or however, long of looking and feeling great. It's okay. So in order to be able to flex that muscle, that I am worth it, I can afford this, I can spend money on the things I choose, we also have to be intellectually honest about when we are spending money on a consumption item, a luxury, or an investment.
I completely agree. One of the things that we're very curious about is, what do you see that couples do wrong when it comes to relationships? For example, there are people that do things right. Obviously, it's what we've spoken about earlier, but what are the mistakes that you see a lot of couples make, especially early on in their relationship? A lot of our listeners are either, with someone that they're probably going to marry soon, or they're looking for a life partner.
A few mistakes in order. One is they don't talk about money, especially when dating. They sort of dance around it, or they delegate to somebody else. And this is where, they don't want to ask because of these invisible scripts that we have. Like, if I ask, they'll think that I'm just hunting for money. I never believe that. Money's important to me. And I think for everybody listening, it's obviously important to them. They wouldn't be watching or listening. We don't need to apologize for that. Money is not just about accumulating in a bank account. Money is what we eat for the rest of our lives. It's where we live. It's potentially how we raise a family. It cuts to the very core of who we are. Mm-hmm. So you think I'm going to shy away from talking about that? No, I'm going to talk about, I can do it delicately. I'm not going to put somebody on the spot, but I'm not going to apologize for wanting to talk about money. That's the attitude I want all of your listeners to have. Mm-hmm. Like, of course, money's important to me. Of course, we would talk about how we grew up. Of course, we would talk about what kind of food we like to eat. Mm-hmm. Like, can you imagine you were dating a picky eater? Oh my God, I would be like, I'm out of here. Actually, let me ask you a question. Would you rather date somebody in $25,000 of credit card debt or a picky eater?
Both are difficult.
I know. This is an impossible choice. What would it be?
I think it would be the credit card debt. I wouldn't mind, because a picky eater, it's like a value thing for me. Like, I didn't grow up being a picky eater, so I struggle with people that are like, allergies aside, I struggle with people that are picky eaters. But credit card debt can be explained by so many different things that have happened. So I'd lean more towards the person with debt.
That was a very good answer.
What would you choose?
Oh, God. Like, I literally talked about this with my wife for 25 minutes and we were both like, and I was like, that's why this is a great question. So good. I think if they had credit card debt for poor spending, then like my first reaction is, well, okay, like I'm the money, I know money, I can fix that. And then I found myself saying exactly what I don't ever want to say or have people say, which is like, oh, like I could be in charge of the money. Wrong. Yeah. We never want to have a money person in the relationship. We want to be partners, regardless of how much one person makes. But then I was like, God, but what if they only eat chicken nuggets? And then I don't think I ever came to a conclusion. But let me do because I forced you to answer the question. If I had to pick, I think I had to pick the picky eater. I can't believe I'm saying this, because money, to my mind, is even more than food. It affects like, all those things I said, where we live, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And I want to be able to trust my partner. I don't want to have to monitor everything. That's not the way I operate with my wife. I want to be able to trust that their spending is aligned. And if they have $25,000 or $50,000 of credit card debt, not medical debt, not student loan debt, I go, what's up with that? That's a values misalignment.
I wanted to ask, when should couples start talking about money? Like, when is too early? I mean, I know what I did
it was pretty freaking early.
Very early.
But amazing.
First month. But like, I think for me, it's like one of my top values. So I wanted to clear that up quickly.
Yeah. I think, date 3 or 4, when you're clearly interested, you're starting to gather clues. And, there's other moments I talked about, but let me tell you this. Do you know there are only 4 times of an entire couple's life where they really substantively talk about money? Substantively meaning they actually look at numbers. Mm-hmm. They talk about it a lot. What do you think those 4 times are?
Buying a house, selling a house, child's education and retirement or wedding?
Actually, pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. Buying a house. First of all, they don't talk about it during dating. They don't substantively talk. They don't talk about it when they move in. They don't even talk about it when they get married. They literally go, how much should we spend? $25,000. Okay, fine. Pretty much the same number. They talk about it when buying a house. Yes. They talk about it when having kids, in particular, because sometimes it involves one person stepping back from work and there's a lot of questions. Yes. They talk about it when they're roughly 58 to 60 years old and they're starting to think about retirement. Mm-hmm. There's one other time when one of them is laid off or loses their job, because that directly affects. Other than that, the vast majority of couples literally just sail through their financial lives.
Why?
Why would we talk about it? I still have cable on, whether I pay attention to these confusing numbers and words. Why would I? Once in a while, my wife or my husband gets mad at me. And then I say like, I'll do better. And then we fight and then we sleep on other sides of the bed. And then we wake up in the morning and pretend it didn't happen. So why would I? People's finances are not something that directly affects them, is the way that most people think about it. Now, of course, you and I are sitting here like, don't you understand compounding? Do you understand tax advantage accounts? That's not how everyday people think. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason that you can tell I clearly love my job is I love knowing all the asset allocation and tax advantages and this and that. But I love talking to everyday people, because the truth is everyday people are not sitting here freaking reading personal finance books. Mm-hmm. They're not sitting here comparing this account versus that. They're just like, I want to go to work, come home from work, like have a nice dinner, spend some time with the family and go to sleep. Mm-hmm. That's it. And I'm like, cool. we can make that happen. And also you can live a much richer life than you ever thought possible if you learn how money works.
When you talk about that, one of the things that kind of keeps coming up is a lot of women in our podcast community are often high earners, and they have like fear or questions around, well, will I ever find a partner? Are people scared of women with money? Like they kind of hold these, whether it's self-sabotaging or not, these beliefs that it is hard to be a woman that earns a lot of money and have a healthy relationship.
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons to think that. I mean, candidly, I talk to a lot of couples, and many couples where there are higher earning women, and it's often a challenge. It's often a challenge not for the reasons that people think. One of the major reasons that I see is that we simply do not have role models that have modeled that for us. So in so many relationships, like of our age, our parents, we had, if it was a mom and dad was working. And if mom was working, she was probably earning less than dad. Basically, dad was the primary earner.
Yes.
And that has a lifetime of role models that we kind of accept, like dad's at work, dad's coming home from work. Quantitatively, the family depends financially on how dad is doing. And we kind of learn, and a family adapted to that. Well, what do you do, right? Like right now we're in New York, and in New York, women in their 20s earn more than men in their 20s. I love that. I want that. And I want men and women, and especially women when it comes to finances, to embrace their rich life, embrace the knowledge that you teach them on this podcast, embrace the fact that they can spend money on the things they love and invest and save. I love all of it. But you get into a relationship, particularly a heterosexual relationship, and now you have lots of invisible gender roles. You have, as you said, some of your community saying like, oh, like that might put my partner in an uncomfortable place. I don't want to emasculate a partner. Or this idea that like I need to be dating somebody who's making as much or more. And if you're already earning a high income, well, that pool is quite small. Let me say this. We value that which is quantifiable. This is a big thing in America. I don't love it. In America, we value the thing we can quantify. And that's why so many couples, when they come and talk to me, they're so obsessed with the higher earner. They're contributing a lot. The lower earner in relationships is always obsessed with the C word, contribution, always. So the higher earner is making money because at least in America, we are obsessed with that which is quantifiable. So it shows up on a spreadsheet, it must be valuable. But in a relationship, there's so many other things to contribute. Like if your relationship is only based on who's contributing money, I don't believe that's a full relationship. There's emotional support. There's physical support. There's household. There's logistics. This is running a business, the business of running a household together. So I would say that if you are a higher earning woman in a relationship, there will probably be a lot of conversations about what does this look like? Here's how I grew up. How'd you grow up? What would it mean for us if, I continue getting raises? What do you think? And then it also probably takes some conversations with yourself. Am I comfortable with this? What will my friends think? So much when I talk to couples where there's a gender imbalance in favor of the higher earning woman, oftentimes there are friends involved in like, oh, wow, like that's surprising.
Oh, really?
Yes. And here's what I want. I always say your rich life is yours. Nobody else's, not your friends, not your parents, nobody, it's yours. You and your partner will create the rich life that you want. You have to do it intentionally. You have to talk about it a lot. But the more you really design your rich life to fit you two like a handmade glove, the more it will be confusing and even bewildering to other people. That is the way it should be. Your rich life should look nothing like anybody else's. If that means that you earn more than your partner and you find a way to make it work, amazing. That is exactly how it should be.
One of the things that keeps coming up in our community is the idea of 50-50. You probably hear this a lot. What are your thoughts on, I feel like there's like two schools of thought. Some people like 50-50 is natural. It should be what it is. Other people think, you should split finances based on, something that's a bit more equitable. And then this is kind of like this group in the middle, which I think are a lot more smaller now, which is, everything just should get pulled together and it's both of us to share.
50-50 doesn't make any sense to me at all because at different life circumstances, it will never be 50-50. Like even if two people are getting married at age 30 and they're making exactly the same money, that is going to change within 5 years. One person is going to be making more or less on the order of thousands of dollars. One person might get promoted. One person might switch jobs or industries. One person might stay home with the kids. One person might then go back to work and the other stays home. So if you're setting your life up to be 50-50, then you're going to be disappointed for the rest of your life. This is so important. This is one of those things that is, it is a value. It is like you get this right and everything else falls from it. You get this wrong, you're going to be hating your life for the next 50 years. I'll tell you what we did. And I messed up on this big time. When my wife, now wife, and I met, we got married. And I was living in a more expensive place than she was. She moved into my place and I knew we couldn't do 50-50 because if she paid 50%, that would basically be like way too expensive for her. That was not fair. So it was like, I wanted to combine our income. And I'm like, we're married. We've got to combine and we're on the same page and we're both partners and we can talk about it. And this is another important point. In many couples, there's a money person. Big no-no. Usually the money person is the person who earns more or knows more about money. I knew that would be a huge mistake. So from day one, I said, look, I want us to be in this together. Sure, it'd be easier if I did the money. That's what I do for a living. But number one day I'm going to die. I'm going to get hit by a bus. And if some shithead from Goldman Sachs calls you the next day and says, I want to charge you 1.75% AUM for some goddamn wealth management, I will rise up from hell. Okay? I said, that's not happening on my watch. Number two, I need a second set of eyes. Like, yes, I do this for a living, but I still make mistakes and I still want you because she's even better at analysis than I am. So I want that partnership. And then number three is just like, this is more fun. It's way more fun to do this together. I don't want to be sitting over here doing it alone and we're living our life, but I'm doing the money. No, we got to do this together. And so that was hard. That took years of us coming together. We did proportional for a while. Eventually we combined all of our money. Now our situation is extremely complicated because we're two entrepreneurs with separate businesses and we have a prenup. So there's a lot of complexity, but combining our money instantly put us on the same page, felt so much more aligned. And we, like any couple, has developed our own internal rules. When do we use this credit card? When do we have our own individual credit card that we each have our own individual money as well? So if you're asking, what would I recommend for couples? If you're a married couple, my suggestion, combine it and make sure each of you has your own individual, no questions asked, guilt-free money. If you want to spend it on traveling or a girl's trip, guy's trip, whatever, that's for you. Your partner has no say in it. In fact, they don't even have access to your account. But for the most part of your life, as I say in my book, Money for Couples, our future is together. Like when I think about what gets me excited, I'm not thinking about taking a solo trip. I'm thinking about where can I go with my wife? What is going to be exciting for us? That's what lights me up. So our future is together. So our accounts should be together.
I honestly could keep chatting with you for like another hour on this topic. It is so interesting. If you could give one sort of like final piece of advice, the thing that you wish just like helped every single person listening with better managing their money, living a richer life. I know it's very hard to bring it all together, but what's one actionable step they can take?
I want everybody listening to be able to answer by the end of the day, what is your rich life? And go deep. If your first answer is travel, go deeper. I want to know, where are you going? Italy. When? November. How long?
6 months.
There we go. Dreaming big. I like that. Don't shrink your dreams. Expand them. What seat are you flying on the airplane? Who's coming with you? What's the experience going to be? Put that vision, write it down. We may not be able to get there today, but we could probably take a 10-day trip over the course of the next 2 years. We can save for that. We can probably bring it up with our partner if we're in a relationship. Say, hey, what do you think about this? What would our rich life vision be? And we, most importantly, can start from a place of excitement, passion, And that's how you create the foundation for a rich life.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was so incredibly helpful. For those that want more, where can we find you?
You can find my new book, Money for Couples, everywhere. And you can also find the accompanying podcast, Money for Couples, where I talk to couples every week. It's on video, it's on audio, and I pull real numbers so you can hear their actual income, actual debt, actual spending. It is like nothing else you've ever heard.
And for couples that want to come on the podcast, how do they find you?
They can apply.
They can apply?
They can apply, yeah, absolutely. They can apply. Or if they don't want to go public, I also have a private coaching program and they can join that.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.